Okay, so Bleach is finally over. I can't say that I'm happy nor sad about it. Usually, when I watch an anime or I read its original story, when it ends, if I don't feel my soul churning or feelings welling up to where I don't really want it to end, then I feel like it's a good story. Bleach didn't give me any of that. When it finally ended, I thought that it was neat that Ichigo, oh, um, before I even continue, okay, considering I said Bleach ended, you should either pause the video, fucking leave, or just stop yourself right now, cause yeah, I'm about to list some spoilers, especially at the end, because it has ended. So if you haven't found yourself reading the end of the story, or you plan on getting to it, this is not the audio to be listening to. You should be reading that. You should be getting to that, because I will spoil this shit. Anyway, that was your 30-second warning, or whatever. Anyway, I thought it was neat that Ichigo and Orihime were together. They were paired together, and Renji and Rukia were paired together. That is pairing justice to me. Some people might disagree, but I don't agree with those people, nor do I give a fuck about them. I've been in so many debates, whether it be with other friends who like anime or whether it was just people that I know online that I was having disagreements with. A lot of people thought that Ichigo, if anything, if Bleach was going to end, Ichigo and Rukia would be the ones together, to which I never really understood that pairing. Just to let you know, this rant, ramble, whatever the fuck it is concerning Bleach, it's gonna be all over the place. It's gonna be structured. It's gonna be structured rather poorly, and that's mostly because I'm speaking of Bleach off my head. Like what I've seen of it, what I've read of it, whatever. And my experiences dealing with this story and its writing and its characters and whatever. But yeah, to go back to what I was speaking about, for some reason people thought that Ichigo and Rukia were like the best pairing. Like they deserve to be with one another because, oh, Rukia's the one who gave Ichigo her powers because she really liked him, and they had a really good relationship, like despite not knowing each other since the beginning of the story. They didn't really know each other, but they had a chemistry. They had a chemistry that was flowing real well, flowing like goddamn mountain spring water, just perfect flow. And they just had that chemistry. And not to mention, it's very apparent that even though Ichigo and Rukia didn't know each other, Ichigo was really quick to risk his life to save her. And that, if that's not true love, what is? And even after that, their relationship was just, it was budding. It was beautiful. It was perfect. They deserved to be with each other. Shut the fuck up. Like, I hated talking, like, rationally, discussing how that pairing could be a thing. Because for me, I'm not a diehard fan to where, like, if you don't ship what I ship, we're not friends. If you don't ship what I ship, I'm burning your fucking house down and keying your car with fucking Ichihime shit. Like, I honestly don't give a fuck, but don't give me piss poor reasons as to why, like, a pairing that even shown within the story is going to be together, and you're simply, whatever fantasies you have of these pairings, you're kind of acting that out in accordance with the story. Ichigo pats Rukia's back, and then because you want them to be in love so badly, you're just like, he doesn't, if he didn't love her, he wouldn't pat her back when she did a good job, right? It's like, ugh. That's what I kind of hate when that's what I hate when I know I'm into anime and I'm discussing topics with other people who are also into anime, because you got the really creepy people who are way too into it to where they would spill their own blood. They would they would pray to Satan in order to like have a pairing be together, whatever. Going back, I never understood why the Ichiruki shippers would be just so determined to find any excuse within the series as to how those two would be together. For me, even since the beginning, because I actually paid attention to the story, not saying like anyone else did, but for me, at least the people who I've spoken to concerning this anime or whatever, they're very delusional. So a lot of the stuff that they were speaking about, it dealt with their personal feeling and their personal interpretations instead of what actually happened in the series. But anyway, since the beginning, it was very apparent that Rukia gave Ichigo her powers, because if she didn't, he was going to die at some point. Because I think, he has stupid shonen hero syndrome where if someone's in trouble, he's willing to kill himself or whatever, even though he doesn't know about this really dangerous and unknown threat, this almost alien threat, but whatever. And I feel like in the beginning, Rukia felt responsible because of her introduction and because she kind of got involved with his life or whatever. She was surprised, for one, that he was able to see her, but, because she kind of caused a disturbance in his life, it caused a hollow to eventually try to attack the both of them. So that left her with the only choice of giving him her powers, and thus he was able to defeat the hollow. How? I never understood, because if she ended up giving him her powers, how did he get stronger? But then I guess it was explained at some point that her powers awakened his own spiritual energy or whatever the fuck. Anyway, later on in the story, it's revealed that Ichigo resembles a character, a sensei of Rukia's who died, named Kaien, and that's later revealed to be Ichigo's uncle of some sort, or cousin, or whatever the fuck. And, I feel like the only reason why there was a bond, or Rukia had some interest in, sticking around, basically, is because he looked like her old sensei of whom she felt that she failed at some point. And I think her character was the type to, I feel like Rukia's character was the type where she would hold on to things no matter how old they were, and she would never be able to get over something easily. And I feel like her way of coping with the pain of losing someone precious to her was to at least be by someone's side and protect them and advise them as if she would have the other person that she had lost. So that was always my interpretation of Ichigo and Rukia's relationship. From Ichigo's point of view, I just see, he looks to Rukia not only as a friend but as a sensei herself, like just a teacher. She, especially during the beginning of the series, he was a soul reaper, didn't really know how to use his powers. Yeah, he'd swing a sword around and whatever, but, Rukia would be there to help him, help him with understanding certain paranormal, spiritual shit that, he just thought were like ghosts or some simple shit. She had the explanations. She was a teacher, but she was also a friend, and that's as far as it ever went. I never really saw any romantic stuff. I never really saw any anything that would try and better explain or push the pairing of Ichigo and Rukia. I saw a teacher and a student relationship, and it never went beyond that. And I think it's disturbing how people but then again, that's just my personal opinion. Maybe I'm reading it too thinly. Maybe there was more to it or whatever. But that's just me, that was just me looking into the series. Whereas I feel like there are some people who are just too delusional, and there's just too much that they read into, or there's too much that they want to make it seem like it's true or something. Like, imagine putting yourself in a situation where you're in school and because you did well on a test, your teacher pats your back and says, "Hey, you did a good job. Here's a goddamn happy face sticker. You deserve it." Not everyone's gonna think, "Ooh, your teacher's in love with you," or whatever the fuck. It's like, let the teacher-student relationship be just as it is, a teacher-student relationship, without having the need to push it further and make it some sort of forbidden type of, like, ugh. Anyway, I'm also glad to see that Renji and Rukia were together. I've already stated that Renji is my favorite character within the entire Bleach series. I'm glad that, knowing all of his backstory and whatever the fuck, his personal opinions, his character, and how much he truly cared for Rukia, he got the girl. Like, fuck yes. Like, you don't know how happy I was when I saw Renji smirk for the last 2 chapters, knowing that he knew, like, damn, I finally bagged Rukia Kuchiki. Like, goddamn, go me. Like, go us. Cause, bitch, we are in this together. Like, god damn it. I've waited chapters. I've waited arcs for this, and we're finally here. We're at the promised land. You're finally a fucking captain, babe. And god damn it. Like, ugh. Like, that was perfect. I fucking love the ending chapters. And it was only because of Renji. Like, everything else I kind of really didn't give a fuck. Yeah, Ichigo and Orihime, that's cool. But I was always gung-ho for Renji. Gung-ho for show. Like, anyway, I didn't mean to, like, ramble about the pairings or the spoilers necessarily. I meant to speak about Bleach overall and how I felt about it ending. So when I found out that it ended and I read the last few chapters or wherever the fuck I left off at some point, again, the ending made me happy, but it was only because I was super hyper focused on Renji and whatever happened with him. Again, he's my favorite character. He was always my favorite character in the series, and I just wanted to see where things would go with him, because if anything, going back to the pairings, but I'm not going to ramble on it for too long, a lot of fans of anime don't seem to get, and I don't know if it's because they've never had crushes in their life or they've never had people crush on them, or either or, but for some reason, like, even in anime, no matter, and I don't know when it comes to anime fans what type of anime they watch, or what type of, like, how many anime they've watched, because it's very apparent that if you've watched a lot of anime and how many writers try to write out romance or character shippings or whatever in their story, they make it very apparent who is going to be the love interest of a certain character. It always happens. Nothing ever changes. At least that's what I've seen. That's what I've read. So if an anime starts, if a story starts, and you immediately see the main character and he's doing whatever the fuck, or she's doing whatever the fuck, and then you have this one character in the background who's like the silent friend or whatever, but they kind of, they give off signs as to how they have feelings for this character, whether they say it to themselves, whether they think it aloud, or whether they have an overprotective nature towards this character. It's very apparent that the author, the writer, did that because he has plans for that character and that pairing. That's just set in stone. So, just like in the beginning of Naruto, and I hate to keep talking about it, but it's the only relevant anime that people can think about, because I'm pretty sure if I say any older anime, people will be like, what the fuck is that? Whatever. So it's with Naruto, you immediately saw, the characters, and when you were introduced to Sasuke, you saw how all the girls like Sasuke, but you saw the main girl, being Sakura, had a love infatuation, interest in him. So we knew as viewers that something was going to happen there, especially since when the series kept going on and on and on, and Sakura would keep being more and more obsessed, and it's like, and whatever, Sasuke would ignore her or whatever. But so long as the story went on and this girl's infatuation never left, you should know as a fan it's not going to leave, because the writer has something intended, like, for the she's I mean, to me, she's always been a fangirl. She's from beginning to end, there no development there. She was always a fangirl and she got her prize. But the reason why it's written is because there's a reason for it. The reason why Sakura was a fangirl of Sasuke is because she was going to be with Sasuke no matter what. Hinata, it was very clear she was the shy girl with the innocent crush on Naruto. Even though she was the side character, every time there was an instance where she was introduced into the series, it was always clear that she still had a fondness for Naruto, that she still liked and cared about him. So you would know as a viewer that that shit was going somewhere. As I said, the anime that I've watched, every time it was clear that there was some sort of, whether joking or serious, type of overprotective or loving type of nature or whatever concerning characters, I knew that shit was going to ship. Because twists don't really exist in anime when it comes to relationships and pairings. Never. Ever. You know what would have been a twist? Because we're still on Naruto, is if it highlighted all that shit about how Sakura loves the fuck out of Sasuke, but at the very end of the series, he got with Ino or Karen. That would have been fucked. That would have been a twist. Like, a twist basically for reactions. Not even because it makes sense, but because it's a twist. That shit rarely happens in a story, at least, again, I haven't seen it. Still, when it came to Bleach, when it came to the pairings, I was happy. I was ecstatic. I wish Uryu was with somebody. I wish, because he's like my second favorite character. But yeah, when it came to the pairings, I was elated. I was pretty pleased with how things turned out. And, when it comes to relationships and how, complicated they'd be, the only one I've ever seen where relationships were complicated and stuff didn't turn out how I wanted it or how I assumed it would fall, that would be like in Gundam Wing, where it's like that annoying bitch wouldn't leave Hero alone, and I thought Hero would gain some sort of emotion or something near the end of the series, and they'd try to, Hero and, what was her name, Renoa or something, they would be a thing, because they were both like very intelligent characters or whatever, but I think they were on opposite sides. I don't know. I fucking forgot. I haven't seen Gundam Wing since I was like 7. I fucking loved Gundam Wing. Duo was that dude. Duo was that dude. But yeah, that would be the only time where I thought, oh, this girl is showing certain interest in this guy, but they don't get together. Huh. And then the other anime would be like Nana. For those of you who don't know, that's an anime about some girl who gets around with her, and she has a friend who's also named Nana, and she tries to be a musician or whatever the fuck. But anyway, Nana dates around, and she dates and sleeps and fucks with all these guys, and they all treat her like shit, or she ends up getting herself played. Like, she ends up playing herself because she ends up getting too emotionally invested. And then the moment she gets to fuck a pop star, she does. And then when she does, she's surprised that the pop star doesn't give a fuck about her, a groupie. And then when it comes to another guy who actually cares about her, and she thinks, oh, well, he's not usually my type, but he treats me right. Maybe I should go with him. Nope, fuck that. Once the pop star finds out that she might be dating around, the pop star was like, nah, fuck that. You're gonna be with me. Because then the bitch is pregnant, and then she's just like, that makes sense. So then she goes with him. So those were probably the only two shows that like fucked me up when it came to pairings. But yeah, going back to Bleach, because I'm talking about every other anime besides it. Um, I had no other reaction. I had no other feelings when the story ended. When I read the last chapter, um, I was just like, oh, okay, that's cool, you know, pretty neat. But that's about it. And I think it's because I was never really emotionally invested into the story of Bleach. To be honest, to me, Bleach it was like a roller coaster. It had its ups and downs. It had its highs and it had its lows. It was exciting at one point and it would be boring the next. Um, I never really read the story. I kind of watched the anime, but since the beginning, I can't really say. I'll say for the first 20 episodes of Bleach, I was pumped because I expected a lot to happen. And the only reason why is because when Adult Swim was highlighting how Bleach would be on there or premiering, whatever the fuck, like the promo of Bleach just highlighted how, oh, Ichigo Kurosaki, he's a 14-year-old guy and he can see ghosts and he spirits and whatever, right? So the promo made it seem like, oh, here's this teenager and he deals with ghosts and he might have to deal with them and get rid of them in his town or something like that. And the only way to do that is if he becomes a Soul Reaper. So I thought that was going to be interesting because I was like, oh, that's gonna kind of be like Yu Yu Hakusho. And I fucking loved Yu Yu Hakusho. So after that promo was done, I was kind of hyped. So when Bleach actually finally showed up on Adult Swim and I gave it a chance and I watched all its episodes in all its entirety, like I said, the first 20 episodes, I just stopped being pumped because it wasn't going in the direction that I thought it would, mostly because I kept having Yu Yu Hakusho in mind. I thought the pacing would be a lot faster, which it seemed pretty slow as a kid watching Yu Yu Hakusho, but after rewatching it as an adult, the pacing was super fast. No character ever really had a break in the story. As soon as one arc was finished, a new one immediately started. There was absolutely no filler, and I think that was Yu Yu Hakusho's thing. It was always action, action, action. And after rewatching it, I was hoping that they put at least a little bit of filler because that way we could probably know the characters personally. But even through all the action, it was kind of enough. But yeah, Yu Yu Hakusho was a really good anime. It's not perfect, but it was really good. And so I had high hopes for Bleach because I thought it would have that type of pacing where it was nothing but action, action, action. So I thought maybe after episode 1, 2, maybe even 3, I thought the action wouldn't stop. But instead, the pacing was it was very, I wouldn't even say slow. It was like sluggishly slow. I expected, and here's my thing with any anime that deals with any character, um, who gains any type of inhuman power, a lot of these characters are so fucking chill about it. Like, they act like that shit isn't exciting or it isn't. Like, damn well if you woke up the next day with fucking fire powers, like you were like Ace in One Piece and your hands fucking fire fisting and shit. Like, if you woke up the next day with whatever type of ability, you would be fucking pumped. And whether you'd be evil or good, you'd want to discover how much you could do with your abilities and what you could do with your powers. You might even skip school, cause fuck it, you have powers. But it seems like an anime, especially with this one, it's like, okay, Ichigo became a Soul Reaper, but he didn't really give a fuck. And that kind of gave me, it made me irritated with his character, because I would say out of any shonen hero, he's like the most boring. There's nothing really to Ichigo except for the fact that he's this fake brooding tough guy, and that's exposed even in like episode 12 when it's like, oh, I only act like a tough guy. because that's my image or whatever. Like, okay, cool. But it's like he's so boring and he's so bland. Um, and the fact that he got his powers literally the episode after that, he didn't seem all that invested. I could be mistaken because it's been a long time since I even watched Bleach, but I thought there would be more. But I think it's my fault because I was too busy really comparing it to Yu Yu Hakusho, and so I was hoping he'd have some sort of like Yusuke type of reaction to a lot of the things that he had to do. Like, so when he had to fight hollows, like maybe he'd be upset about it because he didn't really sign up for it or whatever. But then again, it's not in his boring character because he'd apparently give his life for an invisible spirit so that he barely knew. So what the fuck, right? Either way, the story of Bleach, it was interesting visually, I guess, because you had Ichigo, you had the main character, and he was doing his high school thing in Karakura and whatever, and then you had like Soul Reapers, and then you were introduced to that. You were introduced to that shit and the ways of that, but I just gotta say, like, Bleach was never the type of anime that I would be like, oh fuck, it's Wednesday, gotta stay up until 10 because I gotta watch Bleach. Like, it was never that good. And shit, I did that for Legend of Korra for maybe the first 2 seasons or whatever. But it's like with Bleach, I just wasn't really feeling it. I felt the pacing of it was super slow. I wasn't interested in Ichigo as a character. And I felt like it was probably because after that one episode, where it was exposed that his tough guy, persona or whatever was just an image. I kind of expected, like, it was weird that he would admit it because I didn't think that that would be a thing. But even afterward, I was just like, oh, okay, well, where would this go? So I thought that I'd see a lot more of his personality or how he truly is instead of always being tough. But no, he always is, and he's always loud, and he's always angry, and he's always fighting. Okay, whatever. Yusuke did it, and he pulled it off well because you still saw his personality, and you whatever. With Ichigo, he's like, I don't know, like, Yusuke would be like a Capri Sun, right? And then Ichigo would be like a Capri Sun with 50% more water. like like a watered down version, like a very boring, bland version. And I don't want to keep comparing him to Yu Yu Hakusho, but I'm just saying when I did get into this series, that's what I was, I guess, mentally comparing it to. And so I only had hopes for it because I wanted it to be like this other anime. But still, even when it showed that it wasn't, when I gave its own story a chance, its own lore, its own wherever the fuck it was going a chance, I was still bored out of my mind. The only time it got interesting is when all of his friends started getting these new abilities, and then after that, then they get to go to the Soul Society, and that was interesting. And then even when they got to the Soul Society, then it got boring again. And again, I kind of blamed the pacing because there'd be action, but then it would be super drawn out to the point where it's like I pumped myself and I held on to that pump for a good 30 minutes. Now I'm getting tired, so now I'm just gonna relax. And then I did, and then I would relax for the next 12 episodes until something happened which would get me pumped again. And that was something that was very repetitive within the series that got me really bored. I'll say throughout the entire story, I was in and out. Like, I would sleep on it, and then sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes it was interesting, and sometimes it wasn't. When they started introducing new characters, I thought that these newer characters would be more interesting or something, but they just weren't. A lot of them were all boring, and I think the reason why is because compared to any other anime, a lot of the characters portray themselves as very serious, and if not serious, then very relaxed. Whereas in other animes, you have a lot of characters with different personalities, and whether they interact or not, it changes the mood a lot within the series. But in Bleach, literally everyone's personality, except for the exaggerated characters, because except for the exaggerated characters, everyone's personality in Bleach was borderline serious or boring, and it was and that made the mood of the overall series either serious or very boring. And when it came to the exaggerated characters, they were there for comic relief or whatever, sure, but still the series was it took itself very seriously to me, but yeah, like you'd be introduced to Byakuya, you'd be introduced to Kenpachi, you'd be introduced to Toshiro, and all of those characters are serious. It changes with Kenpachi because he's super deadly and he's super violent and he's super destructive. So yeah, it gets tense. But when he's not like that, he's still serious. There's not much to him except that he's a little less or a lot less intelligent than the other Soul Reapers around him. When it comes to Byakuya and Toshiro, they're super serious, they're soft spoken, they're very intellectual, they're very analytical, they're very, you can list them off as you can list the same type of traits within 6 or 7 different captains. And granted, they might have 1 or 2 traits that are different from one another. All of them share like the same serious air about them, which made it very bland to me. I feel like when it comes to stories or anime in general, the more personalities, the better, because you're introducing a lot of possible relatable characters rather than them all literally be the same and maybe have 1 or 2 quirks that make them unique or different. But that was my point of view when it came to Bleach. Still, I was always in and out of the series. After Rukia was saved, it got boring again for me, so I stopped watching it. And then when I came back, stuff happened with Bleach, with Iran cars or something like that. Aizen defected. And so I remember back in high school when people would be talking about Bleach and talking about how that stuff was happening, I was like, oh, cool, like something picked up. And then I'd go back and I'd try to watch it or something, and that shit would still be boring. Granted, I mean, Ichigo getting his ass beat by Grimjaw was great. I fucking loved it. It could have been more bloody to me. Like Tenjo Tenge bloody, but whatever. But even so, the whole Arankar thing, it was the pacing was slow. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I could be wrong, because I'm literally going off of my memory from what I had like fucking years ago when I was actually watching the series. I never rewatched a Bleach episode ever. I was never interested in rewatching a Bleach episode. I only watched that shit once and that was it. But going back, I think what was the Arankar's plan of attack? I would assume that because they were all strong and stuff, they would just destroy the town and whatever all at the same time. But no, 1 or 2 of them would attack once or twice and then leave some time and leave people to reflect on how powerful they were and stuff. And that shit just didn't make any sense to me. If you're introducing a lot of powerful characters in the story, have them fuck some shit up. Like, I don't know. And then I don't know. It was boring. And then I believe when I was watching the anime, because at the time I was watching the anime, um, then a fucking filler fucking series within Bleach was, it kept popping up in the middle of that arc, and that was fucking annoying. Didn't I didn't see why that was the case, but either way, I didn't watch it. I mean, I watched maybe 2 episodes of it, saw a young Kisuke, that was cool, but that's it. And then I stopped watching it because it was a waste of time, and whether that whether that was Tite Kubo's or just the animation studio's idea of that being a good idea, it was fucking stupid, because you're trying to pull people up to this certain climax within your story, and then you're just leaving them there to be bored out of their fucking minds to just talk about something else. And so I thought that the pacing and the writing was kind of weird. And again, I don't really blame Tite. I think it was more the animation studio. But still, story, whether it's just the story in itself, Bleach was very boring to me. I think there was one episode within the Arankar arc which some dude with weird teeth and the fucking number on his tongue, and he had like a spoon as a fucking jacket or whatever. I watched one episode of that because apparently he became one of the strongest in the group, and he decided to fight Kenpachi. And so I thought that was going to be super fucking exciting. I was like, about time. I watched the episode, and the entire 30 minutes I was sitting there, minus maybe the 10 minutes of commercials that I had to waste my time to, 20 minutes of that was literally this guy telling Kenpachi, "You're not stronger than me," and then him getting his ass beat by Kenpachi, like throwing him or punching him or swinging his sword or blowing some air that made this guy tumble or whatever. And then they just have a conversation back and forth about how they were strong. Like, there wasn't that much action. Even if there was, it was probably like maybe 5 frames. And then it would just be conversation. And that was one thing that also bored me within Bleach. Every time, there was always one moment where, like, or one episode or one chapter where it was nothing but a conversation. And there was nothing of substance within that conversation. Nothing that interests me or anything. It was like a chapter of characters talking shit, or just simply having a casual conversation. Hey, good morning. Hey, how you doing? Oh, you're interested in crocheting? That's cool. Like, I don't give a fuck. Either way, I dropped Bleach at that point, and then years passed, and I heard that the anime finally ended. And again, I didn't feel any type of way. I didn't really care, because even at that point, then they entered some other story arc with some annoying princess, and Ichigo has to protect the princess. Who cares? Like, and then another thing that I think didn't really interest me with the anime is literally every character looked the same, except they either had a different hair color or they had 1 or 2 different things, markings, traits, qualities, or something that made their outward appearance different. Like, I always thought Kaien looked like Shuhei? What I don't know, Shuhei? Whatever his name is. Except Shuhei has fucking tattoos and scars on his face, and his eyes are beady. But it's like, what the fuck? Like, literally, everyone has the same eyes. Everyone has the same mouth. Like, it's kind of, I don't know. Like, a majority of the characters look like each other, except, hey, he looks like Ichigo, except if his hair was longer. Oh, he looks like this character, but he's bald. Like, I felt like there wasn't much variety, but I understand that that's stuff that happens with anime. I'm just saying, with animes that do that, where literally every character looks the same except there are 2 or 3 things that are different, that's always been like a pet peeve of mine. So I wasn't really interested at that point, because to me, in the beginning of Bleach, everybody looked different, kind of. But then when the introduction of 200 plus characters happened, then everybody kind of started to look alike. And whatever. I mean, whatever. Either way, for me, the overall story wasn't all that great. I did go back into Bleach, but because the anime was over, I had to read it. And the only reason why I read it is because they finally gave some backstory as to how, basically, how Ichigo is powerful in the first place. Because throughout the story, it was very apparent that, everyone was confused as to why Ichigo was a Soul Reaper, because he was a human. So obviously there was some backstory that they were going to go into great detail about. It's just it took 500 to 600 fucking chapters to get there. And so they explained that, his mom was a Quincy and whatever the fuck. And for me, that was interesting. I was reading that backstory. I was reading what Uryu's dad had what is his name? Ryuga? Well, I don't know his name. When I read that backstory, that was super fucking interesting. I fucking loved it. Like, I was just like, oh, like maybe today he cooked up some writing tips, cooked up some good inspiration and made his story great, And so when I read it from that point, then I started getting interested again. But then again, I think it was nearing the end of the story, because then it was the Soul Reaper Quincy War or some shit. Even then, I found out Uryu betrayed his friends and he was gonna join the bad side. But then I was like, oh no, this is Naruto era, so most likely he's pulling a Sasuke. Most likely he's still friends with Ichigo. It's just he's trying to sacrifice himself or whatever the fuck, or whatever. I ended up being right, because of course, like, Uryu would have no reason to be like a bad guy, but whatever. I read on, was introduced to more characters. Some of them were interesting, some of them weren't. And honestly, I'll say near the end of Bleach, that was the pacing and action that I was talking about, that I would have preferred. Because when stuff was happening, it was happening. There was no chapter or two that gave like huge gaps of like conversations or information that didn't pertain to like the story or what was actually going on, or gave us more information about a character or something. Like, every chapter from that point on, I believe, had some sort of action in it, and it had some sort of revealing type of information that made me more interested in somebody's character or whatever. And now characters' lives were on the line, Soul Reapers were dying, stuff like that. And I honestly liked it. I liked Bleach from chapter 600 onward. It was great. Like, everything else before it, I don't know about all that, but I liked it. I liked the pacing of the action and where the conversations were going. When it came to, I guess, Ichigo having to fight the main bad guy, that was cool. We all knew he'd win. Fucking loved Kisuke's Bankai. Like, that was cool. That was real cool. But yeah, from that point on all the way to the end, I mean, fucking, I hate how Ukitake had to die. Ukitake, whatever. I hate how he had to die. He was another favorite character of mine. I thought he was pretty cool. I thought his Bankai could be better, but whatever. But yeah, I'd say, again, when it came to the characters' appearances, I wasn't all that impressed, because to me a lot of the characters ended up looking the same. But I guess when it comes to anime, that is something that can happen. But at the same time, no, not really. I can't give anyone that excuse. But then again, that's his style of art, so I can't really be too critical. Even I don't have a fucking style. So, but just look at Free. Everybody looks fucking different. So, and I'm just talking about like face, like character faces, like most of them, 80% of them look completely different, you know? So, I mean, you know, you got some here or there who look like the same, except they got a different hairstyle, but like, again, I'm not gonna be too harsh because it's anime. It's kind of hard to make everybody look completely different, but then at the same time, when you question yourself, really, is it hard to make people look different? So yeah, when it came to the overall story, again, I was bored. um at some points I would honestly question myself as to why his story was like in Shonen Jump. Like, why was it hyped? Because, but I'm not gonna lie, it had its points to where it was exciting, I guess. But still, Bleach will never be like a top 10 anime that I would recommend, or a top 10 story that I would tell somebody to read. But that's just me. When it came to the characters of the story, again, they were very bland. I don't I'm very tired. I'm not sure if I already said something about the characters or whether it came to their looks, but when it came to the characters personality wise, again, I thought that they were pretty bland too. I wish there was more character because, again, it seems to me like everyone had the same personality traits except for maybe the girls. And when they weren't serious, you know, they had their like comic relief scenes, but majority of the time they were literally the same. Other than that, when I heard and read that the ending and saw it and heard that it ended and whatever, my heartstrings, nothing was pulled. I didn't have to press my life alert button. I was fine. And again, me just stating my opinion that Bleach was boring, that's just me. It could anyone else could tell me something different, but that's their personal opinion. Like, if they fucking found that shit super exciting, I did too, from chapter 600 onward. But yeah, chapter 1 and chapter 20, and then chapter 600 onward, like that, all that other shit, no thank you. It's for the birds, not for me, not my cup of tea. But the only thing and I don't want to sound like a fangirl or anything, but the only thing I was really happy about is that, you know, my pairings shipped. Like, that's cool. One thing I will say that I was annoyed with when it came to the ending is that it seems like in a lot of shonen stories, when it comes to the main character and then whatever side character or other main character that is supposed to be their love interest, there's never a development as to how the relationship can naturally form, or there's never a tiny scene or a fucking chapter dedicated to characters expressing their feelings for one another. Like, I think it's just odd, because it seems like either there are writers who lack that experience, or they feel that they can't depict it well. But what's to depict? Fucking read a shoujo book. Fucking read a shoujo story, take an instance from that, and then emulate that shit. Copy it. Let's not act like you haven't copied anything else. But that's one thing. Like, even in Dragon Ball Z, that guy can't write. Didn't Akira admit that he's not good with romance, or like writing it out or showing it or whatever? But he was still able to show Chi Chi kissing Goku on the cheek, or their first date as kids, like, and how Chi-Chi, like, really liked him or whatever the fuck, like, even if that was superficial within itself because she was 5. But then it's like we see how this bitch is truly crazy because she was obsessed with him since then, and, you know, then they enter the martial arts tournament and whatever the fuck, and then that shit happens, and then they get married, whatever. But the fact that, you know, time was still given to where this character expresses their feelings and stuff happens, and, you know, you get to see them do stuff together, you gotta appreciate that. That's why when it comes to, I guess, mostly shonen stories ending and then not highlighting this relationship thing, this aspect that is clearly there, but they don't want to do anything with it. It's not like you have to dedicate the rest of your fucking story to, like, people dating, but at least give a chapter. To me, this is what I would have preferred, but give a fucking chapter to where you show these characters expressing how they actually like each other or whatever, because it seems awkward, fake, and kind of forced to me when, you know, okay, there's this bad guy, these characters defeated them, the bad guy is dead, time skip, now these characters are married and they have a kid, yay. How did that fucking happen? How? I would love to see a chapter of Ichigo and Orihime's first date. Why? Because we know Orihime's weird, and we know Ichigo's kind of awkward when it comes to weird stuff. Not to mention, like, I guess, being, like, I would assume that with his character, it would be awkward for him to be dating, like, or seeing himself dating a really pretty girl like Orihime. So I would have liked to see how that would have become a thing or whatever. And it's not like you gotta change the genre of your story. It doesn't have to be a fucking shoujo thing. Just show a few fucking boxes as to how, like, they hang out or something. It just seems really fake. It seems like no matter how much, like, that character that initially shows interest, which is usually the female, no matter how much she does or doesn't do within the story, she is literally only there to be the love interest, and that's it. Like, there's no substance to her. She is just there to possibly be with the main character at the end of the series and produce a child, be the mother of their child, and that's it. Like, and that kind of bothers me, because I'm just like, it bothers me because, one, how is this an amazing story when you've got characters that aren't even, like, written out or fleshed out well, you know? But that's just me. I feel like all bases should be covered from beginning to end when it comes to stories like this, especially if you have, like, a pairing that you plan on carrying out. But that's my only thing. I would have loved to see the same thing with Renji and Rukia, because, again, these are pairings that I foresaw since the beginning, and it would have been cool to see them, like, see how they'd interact with each other, just so we can get more in depth with their, like, personalities and stuff like that, and what, like, I don't know, but apparently that's just too much to ask, and nobody really fucking cares. And considering a lot of these authors are writing these stories for kids, then I guess it's not a big deal. But then, you know what, I can't even roll with that excuse, because a lot of the shit that goes on in Bleach, there are some big ass words being explained, there are some huge ass plots and fucking, I wouldn't say adult themes, but there's fan service, so these are for teenagers, these are for people who are cognizant, these aren't for 5-year-olds, these are for, like, teenagers and young adults, people who know how to fucking understand what a story is. And for it to be pretty bland, for it to not go in depth or whatever, it's I don't know. Full Metal Alchemist, like, it's the perfect example of how each character, male or female, is fleshed out perfectly, how their personalities, opinions, and views and outlooks appear within their world, and how it can be influencing, and what their actions do, in which, whatever the fuck, you know what I mean. If you have watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, you would know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, that was an anime that I couldn't even bring myself to watch twice, because one, watching it once is enough. It's fucking brilliant. Whoa, perfect anime. There wasn't a character that I hated, because every character had a background story. Every character had a reason for whatever action they were doing it. There weren't like cliche villains who were just like, "Oh, I'm super powerful. That's why I'm a villain. I'm only a villain because I'm super powerful and I can't be stopped." There were reasons why people were evil. There were reasons why people felt the need to manipulate others. There were, like, everything within that story had a reason. And you had characters that were driven. Each of them had goals, like to be something, or to do something, or to help someone, or to help their city, their town, whatever. I fucking love that story. And there was a lot of stuff that went on. Fucking oppression, fucking racism, whatever. Like, fucking emotional shit. Like, a lot went on in Full Metal Alchemist, and it was perfect. Nothing was dragged out from beginning to end. You knew what each character felt like they needed to do, what they were obligated to do, whether they said it or it was shown in a flashback or whatever. Fucking perfect. And then, like, you have a relationship between two characters that you know is going to be a thing, and you know, even that is fleshed out perfectly, because even though you don't have the girl drooling over the guy, or the guy drooling over the girl, you have substance. You have these characters giving reasons as to why they like each other, reasons as to why, you know, hey, I see myself having a future with you, and here's why. And it goes back to flashbacks to childhood or whatever. It all has substance. It's nothing fake, like some Sakura Sasuke bullshit where she only confesses to Sasuke because he's leaving the village and she loves him, but why? Bitch, you don't know him. You guys never hung out. Like, what the fuck? But you know, everything within Full Metal Alchemist had substance. And then even at the end, like, you could tell Ed's relationship with Winry was, like, important to him, and how much he cared for her and how much she cared for him, and whatever. And then you see the proposal, which was dope. Like, I remember at first I was just like, is this necessary? But then after the moment, I was like, you know what? I think it is. That was something that really did need to be included into this show, because I would have been pissed, you know, watching everybody be on their adventure and whatever the fuck. And then after they beat the bad guy, then time skip, and then it's Ed and Al and fucking Winry or whatever. And then you see Ed and Winry's kids. Like, a proposal, that fucking 4-minute scene, that was enough for me to get it. That was just enough. And then, because that bridges the gap between this guy saving the fucking world and then the future that he's going to have with this girl. That proposal, that 4-minute thing, that's perfect. That bridges everything. I'm not saying every anime has to do that, but give some attention as to how these characters like each other, because it gives it substance. It makes it real to me, at least. What the fuck, right? But that's just me. That's my opinion. So yeah, when Bleach ended, I didn't, all in all, when Bleach ended, I didn't really give a fuck. But I did give a fuck about those pairings. I'm sad Uryu has to be all alone, but whatever. Overall, I can't say much about the story. I already told you I was in and out of that shit, like, in and out. And I'm done. Um, that's all I wanted to say. It's not so much. Sorry that it's not so much a rant. It is like a kind of peeved ramble, if you will. But I just felt like I needed to talk about something anime related that wasn't Naruto for a change. Even though I know you guys enjoy that shit, but yeah, I'm just saying. Uh, I'll probably talk about something else when I find it. Fuck.